Right, we're ready to go.
Thank you. This is John Kruger. It is Thursday, August the 4th, 6:30 p.m. And this is the August study session for the Estes Valley Library District Board of Trustees. We are missing Lynn Lawson. She's away. And so far, Beth Ellis has not joined us. Everyone else is present, including staff, Claudine Perot, Cindy Seckman, and Joanna Stensland, and Friends and Foundation, Annie Finley, and Sarah Walsh. So welcome, everyone. I apologize for the sound of my voice. I did test positive for COVID yesterday morning, and it's like a summer cold so far, symptoms for me. Tonight, we have two topics that we're going to try to cover. The first is staff retention information and ideas that the staff has prepared and done an excellent job, I think. We'll want to spend as much time as possible on discussion once it's been presented to us so that we can give serious consideration to any possible motions at the next board meeting for implementation, if there are any. So then secondly, we will cover the 10-year financial forecast plan and statements that the Finance Committee has worked on. So I'll turn it over to Claudine to start us off on the staff retention.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. I'll be doing most of the talking on the staff retention document, which Joanna is going to screen share. In fact, of the 4 documents, Joe will screen share all of them. But what I'd like to do is make sure the board recalls that while we don't have an HR department in our little library of under 30 employees, what we do have is an HR team. And so the bulk of this work is Joanna Stensland and Cindy Seckman. So the 3 of us make up the HR team. This is our product. And John, I'll try to spend 7 minutes tops on this, just to go over. 10 might be my maximum. Joe, you can keep me honest, okay? In time setting. So in review to the board, this was your assignment to us. This was a request on your part to dig a little deeper after we've done 2 housing surveys with the staff in response to our concern of the frequency of staff turnover. So we consulted some of the material available, the white papers that our HR consulting firm Employers Council produces. They're at the bottom of this document, our source material. We spoke with peers, and very importantly, we pulled out the requests from the staff members themselves, as to ideas to increase our retention rate. So I'm not going to read the document, but I'm going to review some highlights. So if you don't mind, I'm going to look away from the screen so I can read it more effectively over here. So the steps as outlined by Employers Council are 3. It's to analyze our current turnover pattern. It's to assess our existing programs, and then for selecting candidates. And then this is where all the meat and potatoes are here, is reviewing our employment strategies, such as our quality of our communication, compensation, and the climate, the culture in which that we operate. So after talking to John offline, we came up with some principles, assumptions perhaps, that we would like to make sure colors the selection of the programs you might consider and we might recommend. And they are to offer programs that benefit both existing and new staff. I think there was a little concern that we would do everything to only retain new people, but of course we want to retain all our good people. The second is to always look at the financial implications of these financial tools. And third is to keep an eye on what the Front Range is doing, at the risk of sounding competitive, what our competitors, our employer competitors are up to, without feeling obligated to copycat them, but to glean ideas. So the process we're going to use is at this meeting, we're presenting to you for discussion. we will be recording, and with Joanna's help, making sure we know what your preferences are so that we can spend some time looking at the costs so that we can come back in September and say, this is how it will affect the 2022 or more likely 2023 budget. So that's the process from September through December, with the idea of implementing the more difficult or time-consuming or expensive ones in January. So that's the process. And I'm going to now move on, as we discussed the 3 steps for staff retention. I'm going to move to number 1, which is to analyze the current turnover. Thanks to Joanna, we're able to look at the rate of retirement has remained consistent the last 4 years. There have been only 1 or 2 retirements annually, which is it's actually high for us. That's a high rate. However, the departures, as you can see, during our COVID years, we saw a 4-time increase and 38% of our workforce turned over. So I learned today, what is it? When you say it's luckily, copacetically, surreptitiously, that the valley-wide average is 40%. So speaking to my peers and getting this from the EDC, we are regrettably on average with the other employers in the Estes Valley who are saw in the last 2 years a 40% turnover rate. Joe looked through the exit interviews for the reasons for departure. And you can see that 10 were for better or different jobs. And maybe, Joe, I might re-say that to say, some people we hired said, I really want to work at the library now, but eventually I want to be this other thing. Well, that other thing became available really quickly. So a better fit for them too, even though we would have gladly held on to them for a long time. So that was the biggest one, is they left for better, different jobs. Then the second most frequent is retirement. And then the third most frequent is housing or housing related issues. So those are the reasons for departure. John, I believe you asked for number by team of departures, and not surprisingly, our front desk patron services has the highest departure rate, and that is because it's the largest team at the library on library staff. It is the lowest paying. It has the highest exposure, right? So I think there's just some obvious reasons for that, and you can see the rest. So those are, in a nutshell, our analysis of the current turnover. John, if you want us to discuss through the process, I'm happy to, but I'd prefer to just go through it.
Let's just keep going through it. Everyone, please make any notes that you want to bring up or discuss at the end.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that. So number 2 is our selection programs, and that means our interviewing, our posting, our recruitment, our interviewing, our onboarding, etc. So perhaps we're it's unreasonable, but I would say we're pretty confident about our selection programs. We've been working before COVID on improving the quality of that. So as you can see, we've been using organizational values. Part of our interview process is, did you read our values? Can you operate with them? And much of what we've done is based on best practices. So it's a very short section, and I'm happy to talk more. And in fact, I might invite Joe and Cindy, but we have really robust checklists, processes, and in fact, in evaluations, whether people stayed or whether they left, they have universally said, this is the best interview and onboarding experience I've ever had. So we know that's not the problem. The question is, are we hiring the right people? So our processes are good. Are we hiring the right people? And that's the question. We can talk more about that. Are we making the right selection and match? Here, I'll mention that maybe 7 years ago, I think it was reasonable to say if we posted a job, we would get between 30 and 60 applicants, depending on the position. And right now, I think, Joe and Cindy, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're averaging about 3 to 4. So I'm going to move on now to the third step, which is to look at the climate, the culture of the library, and our key retention programs that we offer. Joe, do you mind making that a little bigger? I think it's hard for my eyes. Thanks. And I was looking at my other screen. That's a little better. Thank you. So this is in alphabetical order. It really looks at the key themes as identified by best practice. So the first column is what we're interested in, compensation, growth opportunities. The second column is what are we doing currently in that. The third column is our suggestions to the board, right? What we have found. And then if we can identify that there's a notable cost to it, there's just a dollar figure in that on that final column. Cindy, of course, so the dollar figures are me, the director, saying this is going to cost money. If you see an actual figure, we can thank Cindy, the accountant, for that, who went and found the sum. So let's start then with climate. So there's a lot to be said about the quality of our climate. I think I could say that our focus on values is a big part. Our staff surveys are a part. But the thing we're doing currently, which is identified as high value, high correlation to quality climate, is we're doing the first ever 360 review for me this fall with the staff. However, what we're also going to start doing are stay interviews, which are what they sound like. The supervisor sits down with each staff member and says, why are you here? What would help you to stay? Okay. Under communication, it's the quality of our communication as an organization. I occasionally give you samples of what we do operationally. There was a suggestion to start adding board briefings to we do weekly, but we can add it in once a month, board briefings in staff emails. Okay. Next, we have compensation. And I won't dig into the details. There's a lot here. Well, let me actually back up. John, I'd like to spend a minute on this because besides our annual market survey, we're coming to you with the compensation consultant at your regular meeting this month to talk about moving from our current vacation sick leave accrual to what's called a pay time off program. So that PTO is a bit of an assumption. That's what we're looking at now. Thanks to efforts by the HR team, we are looking at Roth introducing personal wealth options to staff to help them prepare for retirement and build their own wealth. Thanks to your approval, we are already offering what was comparatively higher wages. We've already dropped behind based on the 9% inflation rate from last July to this July. We now provide more positions with more benefits than we did before. We have fewer positions and more of them now are fully benefited, whereas before COVID, we had quite a number of positions without benefits. And of course, the quality of our benefits are very high, thanks to the town of Estes Park, with whom we partner. What we're recommending is a move from our current market view of compensation to a more competitive cost of living salary adjustment. So we're going to talk a bit more about that later. But what I'd like you to know right now, it's a big deal, I think, is exploration of a 4% cost of living adjustment this year. We're finding through Employers Council that many competitive employers are knowing this 9% is real and existing, they're doing a mid-year correction. So that's our proposal. And you can see in the final column that Cindy was able to calculate what the budget increase would be, and that even with the budget increase of a 4% COLA across the board, we will still be at 93% of our personnel budget. So we'll still be under budget. So that's big. I'm sorry, I was about to go over that too quickly. We'll come back to it. The following, I think, growth opportunities. As you might know, we have one staff member actively using the tuition reimbursement program. We do a lot of training. I sometimes worry we do too much training, but there's a lot of opportunity for people to get better at their jobs. What we'd like to propose adding is looking at job duties so that there's a bit more, so that the front line is not just the lowest paid employees with the highest risk, but that everybody has more interesting off-desk assignments and opportunity to interact with the public. So we're looking at a little bit more of how to look at the tasks that need to be done in a slightly different way. The second bullet point under growth opportunities in the proposal column is something Cindy found, which is, for example, we closed Sundays and Mondays, and it's because we are struggling to keep those positions filled. And then we were constantly scrambling, getting the everybody else on staff to stop doing the job that they're paid to do this other job. So what's happening in other libraries is a stipend that people who fill in open shifts, because we do have we have one 24-hour position, we have two sub positions, we have I think 4 32-hour positions. What that means is we have a few positions that are not at 40 hours that we could provide a stipend if you could more regularly fill in shifts. So that's one. And the hot desking, I just want to throw out there is the idea, I think I'm actually blanking on this. So Joe, if you want to step in, the idea that people can essentially work, we don't have the work office that we do today, right? Where Kathleen has a desk and Eric has a desk, but that people, the program team is in the building on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the technical team is in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the rest of the time they're working remotely. So just putting that out there. I'm going to move to housing. I think our efforts so far, I think we've been, I would say, aggressive with Cliffhanger, thanks to the Friends and Foundation. We've obviously done 2 surveys with the staff, and Cindy was able to help us secure a hold on 5 wildfire workforce housing condos. The next column is, as you can see, that little asterisk in front of the each section is signifies what the staff has asked for in the last survey. So allowing pets at Cliffhanger, short-term rentals at Cliffhanger. Sarah, I think, and Annie, I think you might have been here when we reviewed that survey a few months ago. What it was for, we have such a higher proportion of people who live outside of Estes Park now, that there was a desire to have a place, essentially a crash pad for bad weather, or even if it's not bad weather, to come and work Monday and Tuesday, spend the night on Tuesday. I'm sorry, work Monday, Tuesday, spend the night Monday, and then drive home on Wednesday, like to have a more flexible accommodations system. That was the hotel condo for commuting staff in winter. Obviously purchasing the units for staff. An ownership program, we've talked about this, the mortgage matching program that the town does, duplicating something like that. Obviously to be more resourceful in sharing with staff all the housing available, more accurate snapshots in time of where people can find housing. And then John reminded me of the fish hatchery workforce rental units going in, probably not ready till 2025, but there'll be 190 of them. So throw that out there. I know this is a lot of information. We're almost at the bottom. Perks. Right now we offer a 10% discount for rec center or dojo or any health membership, facility membership. So it doesn't have to be the rec center, but that's the obvious one. We offer remote work days, and we've long for decades had the option to purchase things at cost for our staff through Baker and Taylor or publishers. What is being recommended is mostly ideas we receive from other libraries, and these are amped up days off, meaning for your 5-year anniversary, you get another day off, for so extra PTO days to recognize length of service. Gas allowance for those who commute a certain number of miles, right, to make that more tolerable. Wellness programs, there's a lot to be said about that. There are libraries like Denver Public that are offering, I think it's Denver Public. I know I'm being recorded, so I want to be accurate. I think they offer yoga like to staff in the building, right? Like the wellness programs are very widely defined. And then of course, anniversary awards. This came through the Employers Council listserv, which is similar to what we have the amped up. Cash bonuses after years of service, time off at years of service, based on years of service, gifts for years of service, and obviously there would be a minimum requirement of years to receive that. The last part from, again, the frame of Employers Council is how effectively we post and recruit for jobs. Currently, grade 14, which is the librarian, grade 14 is librarian, and higher, we do post nationally in the American Library Association and our Colorado job line for libraries. And we do have a referral bonus program. So if you helped us find the candidate, you as an employee get a bonus for that stipend. What we're proposing is posting all the jobs on Colorado Job Line and looking for candidates invested in working their way up, meaning, hey, come to the Estes Valley Library, be a front desk assistant, and we, based on your longevity with us, we will pay for your education through library school or something that shows our investment in them staying in the field, in the career, and with us. We're already beginning to be, thanks to Linda, she's working with the high school to begin the process of looking at an intern program for future library staff through the high school. And redoing our own job opportunities page on the website to attract talent. We don't have on our website right now, it's as simple as PARA, our retirement program, is terrific retirement program. It's had some bad years, but it is ultimately it's a pension program. And to put all the benefits available for working at the library, we've relied too long on, hey, it's Estes Park, it's beautiful, and the library is really cool. And it's we're overdue to say, here's all the ways in which working here benefits you. So thank you. That was a lot of words. I'm going to turn my mic off and thank you all for listening. And Cindy and Joanna and I are happy to answer any questions, but John, I'll let you facilitate the dialogue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate you going through all that. Let's go back to the beginning. Are there any specific questions you have with regard to the retention issues, the analysis, first of all? Anyone? Yes, Annie? You just muted yourself. There you go.
I just had a question about you said the applications, you're not getting as many. Is there, I don't really, do you know why? Is there any, is it because of all those other step down things, the housing, et cetera, or is it just what's happening in library world now?
Annie, the answer to your question is I don't know.
Okay.
My speculation is that based on every other employer I've talked to in libraries and out are experiencing the same dilemma. We are just not, it was a great migration, but it was also a great retirement. I don't know why we're not getting the applications we did in the past, but we're sharing that problem widely.
Yeah.
It's not unique to us, but we could spend more time looking at it more uniquely.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else in that section? Pete?
Retention in general, John?
The analysis on the turnover is where we are right now.
Okay. I don't have that in front of me, so maybe I'm going over the lines, but
go ahead.
Claudine, I made some notes and maybe I should just pass them on to you, but the two things that popped out to me the most that we might want to put more emphasis in the future is supervisory development, because they impact so many people. And if we could, build up their skill sets in terms of being a really effective supervisor, we might be able to help with retention underneath them. And I like the idea of the internship. Were you talking about a high school student intern or somebody graduated from high school?
We're talking about current high school students.
Okay, current. I think
the school has an internship program, and we would integrate. Ann Dewey, please speak up. But we would integrate into that program.
Oh, good. I didn't even see that, and I had that down as a suggestion.
Okay.
Doing some work, getting help from some of the board members and stuff about increasing the pool I mean, I know it sounds like you're probably turning over all the stones, but there's bound to be some other things we can do to kind of make up for the fact that you're getting like 10% of what you used to get in terms of applicants. You know, maybe we could, I don't know, is there JUCO in Loveland or Longmont that has some kind of library, you know, initial library studies thing? Or I like the internship idea, but, you know, just increasing the pool somewhere. And maybe there's something to be looking at in terms of, I understand everybody is communicated about what the values are, right? And what the expectations are, and you know, can they live with that? Would they embrace that if they came to work for us? But maybe we'll get into some questions about evaluating whether it's really true. Is you know, because anybody can prepare for an interview and say, yes, this, I believe in all that stuff, but evaluating whether they really would live it somehow with, you know, with more in-depth questions, and maybe getting more people interviewing them to get a perspective on, maybe you get the same answer all the time, you know, or do you get different answers when they're interviewing with different people? You know, it might help down on some of the, not necessarily, mainly it's the people who don't fit, you know, cutting down on, eliminating those if we can to the best we can.
Right.
You're not wasting a lot of time on training and things like that, and then having to go out the door. So it was really got down to pool for me, increasing the pool and supervisory development, and then pool is part of selection in general. And I like a lot of the ideas around retention, you know, the recognition things, for lack of a better term, or, you know, recognition of time service, recognition of a job well done. Those kinds of things were all great ideas. My only question on that was, did we involve other employees besides the HR team in terms of getting input? Was this bounced off of employees? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot of others, but I'm gonna get off that now. Let other
Indeed,
people
I
talk.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I had thought originally we might step through the different elements, but let's just have each person have an opportunity to express with regard to any of this that's been shared with us. David, can I start with you next?
Well, you can start with me, but I don't have any current questions. I'm still kind of digesting it a little bit. So I will defer for the moment anyway.
Okay, fine. Kay, would you like to share?
Probably a combination of some questions and comments. Under the growth opportunities, an open shift stipend, I would expect that if someone picks up additional hours, they're paid for those hours. Is this above and beyond?
Can I make a comment for that?
Yes, please.
This was actually what Linda brought from a meeting that she went to with her peers at other libraries. And I believe it would be in addition to their hourly wage. But it was, you know, sometimes we have trouble filling the later evening shift or the more undesirable, you know, the upstairs desk is a little bit boring. And so, yeah. The idea that she got from her peers was that it was an extra stipend in addition to their hourly wage.
So if, let's say, it's a late hour shift, it's a, you know, Sunday, whatever is the not as desirable, would everybody that work those shifts get it, or just someone who raises their hand once and says, oh, I'll do it?
Claudine, I'm not sure exactly how it worked. I think it was maybe shifts that were open that we were having trouble filling. And so instead of needing to close early, if somebody'd step in, I guess, what do you think?
Yeah. Kay, thank you, Cindy. Kay, we don't know the answer.
Okay.
But it's a thank you for bringing forward the idea of sort of our first principle. We're not giving the new people all the key programs and benefits at the expense of the people who we can rely on. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. What is hot desking?
I have to be honest. What is, I don't remember.
Okay.
That doesn't meaning.
I'm going to the housing section.
Okay, there it is, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Okay.
I just had to refresh. So it's a concept of, rather than having dedicated desks in the current staff office, right? Kathleen has her desk,
Mhm.
Melanie has her desk, is that there's heightened flexibility where, let's use the program team as an example. The program team can take their masks off, right, and work in the same workroom because only a third of the people are in there, right? So they're always hot desking. So they're sharing a desk, but they're only showing up in the workplace Mondays and Wednesdays. However, that same team is covering the service desk on Tuesdays and Thursdays or doing their programming. So it's meant to be, it's a rotating desk system. It's heightened flexibility.
Okay.
Okay.
Going to housing,
Mhm.
the ownership program, I think I understand, generally speaking, what the town offers. But do our employees want ownership or do they just want rental? Do we know?
Joanna, if you could, the answer, I believe, Kay, is they want ownership.
They do.
But we have some who are, and Joe, if you don't necessarily have to be able to do it live now, but I think our survey did reveal that for us, our last survey. But we have, how many now? I can think of 3 that are renting. And of those 3, 1 is looking for a home. So we have a high ownership population.
Okay. I'm concerned because what about the people that have purchased homes already and didn't have this benefit? Because, again, there's some discrimination there. I also believe that the Visit Estes is going to have a ballot initiative, and I'd like to think that that's going to address a lot of the housing discussions. No?
Okay, there, I would love to spend 1 minute on that. So yes, the election, which I believe now has been confirmed for this fall, for that pillow tax that will go to workforce housing and childcare, is expected to generate, should it pass, between $5 and $7 million a year, which is a lot of money. That's right. It's like three times what we generate for in the library. The estimated cost to solve housing in the Estes Valley, and I'm not making up the number, is $500 million.
Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, we all know.
So I just want to say it's a fantastic dent, but
it's a start.
It's not the solution. Just wanted to make, that's it. Just,
Okay.
I was throwing numbers out for you to impress you.
I think housing, it's bigger than the library.
Oh yeah.
It's the whole valley. It's the whole country.
It's the world. Yeah.
I feel that because our budget constraints, we have to be very careful about what we do or don't do. But one of the things I did not see is, could we develop a relationship with a property manager and try to be on their list and talk about, the background checks that we do, the fact that, during the fire, during the flood, during the pandemic, people weren't laid off. So they would be good renters. But it's finding a relationship that maybe we could get a little bit of inside positioning.
Got it.
And then the other thing I was thinking is, could we talk to other employers about commute sharing? This has to, you said our competition, our peers are running into the same thing. So could this is big in cities, commute sharing.
Mhm.
Could we do something like that and help facilitate it with relationships to other entities?
It's worth looking.
I was a little concerned about the gas allowance for the commute. And the reason is we have people who've made a decision to live in town, and maybe they pay more rent, they have less space, but I see that this could be discriminatory. And so I'm really concerned about that. And I'd rather try to facilitate something like commute sharing, or, the town could put together a shuttle bus. Something like that. And then my last question is the Colorado job line.
Mhm.
Have we ever hired anybody through that to
Oh, yeah.
date?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we having success in keeping those people? Or is
That's a
there-
great question. I would need to analyze that.
Okay.
I'd have to look over time.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, can I ask you, do we all actively collect where we know? Yeah, it's in the job application. So yeah, we can get that information. Okay.
It'd
Yeah.
be interesting to see what the retention is of those individuals.
Thanks. We
Okay.
pay for the American Library Association posting. We pay for the newspaper posting. Jobline's free, but
Okay.
it's people who are looking to work in libraries only. So
Okay.
that's, yeah.
Yep.
So I think we can analyze all that, the
Okay.
return on investment and, time.
Okay.
So thanks.
Those were my question comments.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Anne, would you like to share, ask questions, make comments?
Sure. I love the high school idea. It's a really good program at our school, and I think that's a really great way to grow some good employees, because we have great kids at our school, and they also already have housing because they live with their parents. So that checks a box too.
Sure does.
I also wondered about the recruitment and the posting and all those places that we put things. Like, if we're focusing our attention only on people who are seeking out a library job, we might be missing potential candidates who would be good at learning a job. So I don't know what other places there are to post jobs, but I think that was one of the things that I noticed.
Thanks. And I'm not going to answer every one of them, but I wanted to let you know what this fails to show, and we'll correct it, is we post in both papers on Facebook on the chamber page, like for every job. I forgot to tell you what we do for every job. And then I just jumped to, and then on librarian or hire, we go to this professional page. So I apologize. I think I misled all of you. We do, it's in the Boulder paper because it's a partner paper to the Trail Gazette.
Okay.
There's all these places that we pay locally. And for higher level jobs, we always post it to this librarian page, these two librarian sources. Now we're thinking to invert it a little bit. We used to post on Indeed, and and other of those sort of like more modern, the process is a little different. I won't go into it, but Kay, your question about what's our return on investment in these various posting places, Indeed was terrible. It was just an experience where we would get 20 people applying that we'd have to manage that application. They weren't really interesting. They were just blanketing. So just wanted to give you that background. John, I apologize. And please carry on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, though. I don't know how people apply for jobs in the real world. I've only ever applied for school district jobs, and that is really different than anything else. The other thing that I thought kind of stuck out to me was the variety of jobs where you were increasing that for the people who work at the library. I think that's a wonderful idea. And I also think that it would be interesting to maybe mess with the structure of the job positions a little bit, like maybe not a top down where there's a supervisor and then people under that person. But if you're having trouble filling the supervisory positions, make everyone's salary a little higher and distribute those responsibilities across all of the people in that department or something like that.
I'm game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things that really stood out to me. I think that there are lots of options. I guess I thought of one other thing, lots of options with people who own hotels in this town and are small business owners, that it could be mutually beneficial to seek out people who would be willing to house librarians during the winter time, when they might just want a night here or there. And if, I don't know, they cleaned their own room, or we had just a few dedicated at a particular place, and that could help out those small businesses who struggle over the winter time, and the library who needs a place for their workers.
And leaves cliffhanger for long-term
Yes.
rental. Yeah,
Exactly.
great.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ann. Appreciate those comments, thoughts. I'm going to give Annie and Sarah a chance. Annie, do you want to start off?
Sure. I really like Ann's idea of sort of dispersing, not always having the top down. It seems like over the time, library has struggled with finding perfect fit for that role. Just observing from my position, that may not be really the case, but that's kind of all I have right now. We certainly are up for conversations about the cliffhanger and animals. I think that's something we're going to be talking about at our next board meeting. So that could maybe, open up and have us be a little more flexible with the cliffhanger.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all. Go ahead,
Sarah, would you like to share?
Just wanted to tell you about an interview that Annie and Christiane Higley and I had today with a VISTA volunteer, which is Volunteer of America.
Mm-hmm.
And we found a college graduate that hopefully will accept our position starting later this year. But she is very, very interested in an MLS as her next educational goal. So something, also the Estes Park High School students, but something you might want to explore, these VISTA volunteers. Just a thought.
Okay. Good. Okay. I guess David, did you come up with anything that you wanted to share before I move on?
Not currently, John. Everyone covered most things pretty good.
Okay.
But is it Pete's hand that's up?
Oh, Pete, you're muted, but you have your hand up.
That was a mistake. I covered everything before. Oh, I did have one question on this high school internship. Is that a formal program, Ann and Claudine, where the students are assigned to various jobs around town, or is there an interviewing process? Are you getting people that are specifically interested in the library? Just real quickly, how does that work?
It is a formal process. It's through CareerWise Colorado. We received a grant to fund this program. And this district partners with area businesses to help a student pick a career path. And then they work, I can't remember exactly what hours, during their junior and senior year. And we had one student who works in the maintenance department at our school district in that same capacity. And then, so they work a number of hours their junior year, they work a number of hours their senior year. And then after they graduate, they either go to a community college to continue their education, to then go back to the business and work for an additional term, or they just go straight to that business. Like our student at this school who's in maintenance has agreed then to work for 1 year at least in our maintenance department since he's been interning there.
That sounds good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just share very briefly, hopefully. I liked some of what Kay brought up. I've brought up the idea of some kind of a van sharing, if you will, pooling for transportation up from the valley. Also, one of the things that's been pointed out to me is we don't have regular hours. Our folks don't work 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever, like perhaps the school teachers or the nurses or the town staff. So how effective that could be for ours with varied time schedules and all is a question, but I still think it's something we ought to get with the primary employers in town, the town, the school, the hospital, anybody else like that has major numbers of employees, and see if that could be something that could be looked at and somehow jointly funded and provided. The fish hatchery workforce housing, I attended a session. They're right now at the point of having that property rezoned, and it will all be rental. So given if our employees are just looking for ownership, that might not be the place for them unless something could be done, at least temporarily. I think it might be something for us to talk to the town and whoever's going to be administering this about possibly putting some holds on a few units there, like we have with the wildfire ownership situation, given that not everyone can afford to buy a house these days, and with interest rates going up, purchasing houses is going to be even more difficult beyond just the general cost of the house. So those are some things that I've been thinking about and talking with Claudine already. So the biggest thing on this probably leads us, I think, to the 10-year financial plan, and that is the salary compensation adjustments. So let's move on to that if we can. If anyone has any other thoughts with regard to retention items, please pass them along to Claudine and myself, and we'll see where we move forward in the coming months. Okay.
Thank
Everyone
you, John.
good with
Thanks,
that?
everyone. Mhm.
Okay, who's going to start us off on the 10-year financial forecast? Is that Cindy?
Well, John, yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
let Cindy do most of the groundwork here.
Okay.
She has done all the legwork on this. I will just preface it by saying that the Finance Committee kind of decided to go with a more conservative view to start out with. This is a fluid document that can be updated at any time. So, but I'll let Cindy go ahead and lay all the groundwork for it.
Okay, thank you, David.
Okay.
And I guess Joanna, you wanna post this document up also?
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't read it, but we can see it. No,
It's
no,
a
I'm
monster,
I'm
isn't
joking. Yeah, it's fine. That's good. That's good. Go ahead, Cindy.
It's definitely a monster, but it works. So I think the first place to start, obviously, is with revenue. I think we all remember last year there was this SB 21293 or something that was going to temporarily reduce property tax rates a little bit for several years, and we calculated it out, and the impact on us was not huge at all. But this year there's a new Senate Bill 22-238 that's going to be a little more significant for the years 24 and 25. It's going to reduce commercial and residential, still not a huge percentage, but an additional percentage from the original Senate bill cut. But it's also going to have exemptions of anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 per parcel, and then the reduced rate on it. So it's going to have a bigger impact. And yet the state is going to supposedly make us all whole for our lost revenue. What's uncertain is when. And Larimer County, I can't get good answers. They're a little less responsive than they were last year. I think they're completely overloaded. They finally just told me, can you back off on your questions a little bit? Let us get this year's valuation out, then we'll work on it. But I think they're still working things out. So with all that said, we didn't put any of that in the financial plan because there's just too many unknowns. It's impossible for budget season. And we won't have to really worry about it for budget season anyway, either, because we will get the actual valuation. So what we decided to do for revenue in the financial plan is take the actual estimate we got from the county as of July 15th of 2022 and calculate it the way we do with our mill levy and the reduced rates. And it does come out just about $47,000 less than our 2022 income. And then we did a gradual increase from there, slow and conservative. So that's the story in revenue. Any questions or comments on that before I move forward?
Cindy, just that we had decided as the finance committee to make that gradual increase of 2% per year.
Yes, thanks, David. That's correct. Expenses is a little bit different story, and I would like to talk about salaries and benefits first. Claudine talked earlier about the 9% inflation rate. That's very real. And right now, the full 9% we did build in to 2023 in the financial plan. And we did make it across the board just for ease of calculation. So the full 9% is in 2023. And then we built in a 3% increase every year thereafter. And then all other expenses, benefits, library expenses, maintenance expenses, we increased starting from the 2022 plan by 3% per year every year. And as you can see by doing that, and the 3% might be real conservative as far, with price increases. As you can see, building all this in already in 2023, we're at a negative net cash flow and dipping it a little bit into reserves. The spreadsheet is designed, it gets kind of messy down there, but it is designed if we make any changes to expenses or revenue, the formulas should automatically work to show the impact on the reserves. And I have it coming out of, so I keep short-term reserves at what the policy says they should be at 25% of expenses from the prior year budget. I keep operating at the level our policy says it should be, and I keep our capital reserve at the level our policy says it should be. So it all affects the long-term reserves, and it shows that by 2031 we could run out of the long-term reserve by keeping everything else at the levels they need to be.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen.
Yeah, there you go. Down a little further there. There's the long term. Okay. All right. David, did you have anything else to add on this?
Well, we had a lot of discussion, John, and for one thing, I find it interesting, this term that they will make us whole again, but we really don't know the mechanism. And as Cindy pointed out, we just don't know when and can get no answers. And as a committee, we just felt to go conservative until we have those answers. Another concern was the rising cost. Obviously, the salaries and thing to come into competitive is an issue. But also, if anyone like me has had any work done lately, the capital expenses may balloon more than we expect to. For instance, I had my driveway resurfaced, and it was almost double what last time I had it done. So for me, that translates into a lot of possibilities for the capital schedule too. So those are my thoughts. I think of right now. We'll have more. I'll ask Kay to add anything because she's
Yes.
was part of that committee too.
Yes. Okay.
I think Cindy and David covered it. We tried to do a realistic, but leaned on the conservative side. That's the only thing that I would add.
Okay. Very good. Appreciate this very much. We have done very well for the last 10 years, putting the funds into that long-term reserve. I think now is the time that we are facing that we need to start accessing at least some of it. Whether we'll have to do that continuously over the next 10 years or 8 years, whichever, is yet to be seen. And as you say, there's lots of uncertainty still ahead of us. I appreciate the fact that you've put the conservative view on the revenue side. It's expected that we'll have some, if you will, loss or downturn over the coming year or 2 or 3. But if history serves us well, at some point that's going to turn back around and move up again. So I think it's very reasonable for us to look at least the coming 3 years and doing what we can to make sure we have the staff and use of the revenues for expenditures that we need to have for the library we want to provide. So I'll open it up. Any other questions or comments around this forecast? And hopefully you were able to read the documents that were prepared as well.
John, that was my request. I realize I think we may have some staff watching the live stream, and of course, members of the public. That material will be distributed at the regular meeting because it's part of the official board packet. But I wouldn't, if you don't mind, if it's not too officious, I'd love for Joanna to share the 2 documents that Cindy has prepared around the 10-year plan, which is a narrative explaining 2 bits. So I don't mean to extend it for everyone, but for the public to see what she wrote.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Please. And maybe you can just summarize, go through it in a summary fashion, Cindy.
Sure. So this is our kind of official 10-year forecast statement that we first created last year to just put some context in what the process is and what we're doing every year. And it definitely talks about, revenue and being fairly conservative, trying to stay away from market volatility and this crazy rate changing volatility because it can't be predicted. The Friends of Foundation definitely is part of our revenue and built into it every year. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Expenses, it used to be just historically 10% across the board. That was to fulfill a promise when we first got our mill levy increased. That was many years ago. For budget purposes, we definitely have moved away from just the 2% increase to more planning purposes. But for the plan, it doesn't say this in here very well, but I did just do 3. We just did 3% across the board because we haven't gotten into the budget process yet. So I couldn't go any further really in 2023 expenses until we get further into the budget process. Investments, I truly, and the finance committee agreed with me when we met, just didn't spend a lot of time trying to predict what interest rates are going to do. We just put a modest amount in just for the integrity of the spreadsheet. It definitely needs to be in there, but our investments remain modest, and a good thing, interest rates are now rebounding. We're happy about that. And again, in summary, this 10-year financial forecast, it's not a budget, it's a living document. It can be changed, and the statement can be changed also based on input from the board.
Thank you. And there's a number of notes under the spreadsheet. Also, I think you've covered adequately. Go ahead with
I
this.
think I covered pretty well, and this was just notes. This was just talking about the revenue. And I didn't name the Senate bills by number, but it's kind of what's going on in the background.
Mhm.
Excuse me, that's the library announcement, just a moment.
Mhm.
But yeah, what the Senate bills, they are going to affect us. We're not exactly sure how much. We are being told we're going to be made whole, and we're not exactly sure when. So there's no point in trying to forecast that out. There was no point.
Usually,
then-
if I might, in the past, we get in the following year, we get something from penalties and that sort of thing. I would suspect that if they're really going to do something, it would be a year delayed for the income, but that's supposition.
Yes, and that very well could be. And the Senate bills do spell out when the state has to get the money back to the counties. But that's the counties, how they're going to disperse that back out.
Right.
That just hasn't been quite decided yet. I haven't been able to find out yet. And it's just my personal opinion that they don't quite know yet. They're still working it out. So.
Sure.
And then this also talks about the expenses, the 9% salary correction was all put into 2023, and then what we did for the rest of the expenses. Now the capital, David made a really good point. The capital that's in the 10-year plan is just strictly based on an now several-year-old facilities audit. Things have changed since then. Costs, as David mentioned, have definitely changed since then, but it really is the only document we have with solid numbers that could be put in the forecast for now.
Okay.
But that will be analyzed further for the budget, obviously. So
Thank you. So I think in relation to this, it looks like things are pretty flat with regard to the foundation grants, donations. I'll call on Annie or Sarah. If our budget continues to need to increase significantly, do you see the future where the Friends and Foundation might be able to increase at some point what they're contributing?
Annie, do you want to answer? Or would you like me to?
I would like you to.
Okay. The answer is yes. To speak sadly, we have about 15 larger dollar bequests in our future. It's just a timing issue.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, I think the reason I ask for that is I think there are other sources that we can hopefully have supplemental to revenue side down the line here also that would help offset how much we take out of our long-term reserves. I'll open it up for any final comments or questions on the 10-year plan. We'll have an update probably, September? As we move to the first draft budget in October? Something in that line or simultaneous?
Anne, could I invite you to mention your request for us to prioritize these?
Oh, sure. I have a hesitation that we have so many ideas that we're going to just leap in blindly and try everything. So I think it's important that we look really carefully at the ideas that have been presented and do a cost benefit analysis of each one. I'm not sure what the criteria should be exactly. I guess that's part of the planning, but then determining which ones would be best to try and attaching criteria for measurement to those as well.
Thank you. That's excellent idea. we will need to give serious consideration to some order to what we try to do. Okay. Anyone else have any final comments or questions around either of these two topics? Okay, I appreciate your participation. We don't want to drag this out. We will have some discussion, government affairs in preparation for the board meeting as to any action item that we might want to present on either of these topics for August. I hope to see you all then. And with that, I don't see anybody wishing to add anything